Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the VRG Virtual Racer League tonight in the Ford GT at Summit Point Motorsports Park. This is Ian Wisman broadcasting for you live tonight. We appreciate you joining us out in Facebook and YouTube land. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit the bell, turn on the notifications, find out when we're going to go live. Looking forward to some exciting racing here. Beautiful Summit Point, West Virginia. We'll catch up with you here in just a little bit. We got 30 minutes of practice, followed by a 15-minute qualifying session and a 30-minute feature race here. Again, this is Ian Wisman with the VRG VRL. We thank you for joining us this evening. Hang tight. We'll follow the field here through practice, and we'll pick it back up as we get a bit closer to qualifying. Once again, this is Ian Wisman with the VRG Virtual Racer League this evening, Tuesday night. The VRG VRL GT Series, second race of season 9 here. We're in the Ford GT at Summit Point Motorsports Park in beautiful Summit Point, West Virginia. Currently watching Stefan Vapp out in the Ford GT on top of the time tower. here in this 30-minute practice session. We're about 10 minutes in. Certainly appreciate you joining us out there. Stefan just back from a successful weekend at Put-in-Bay. Road races through a fantastic little town. Have to take a ferry to get there. Understand a bit of inclement weather there. It's up on the lake. But everybody seemed to have a grand old time, and I gather Stefan did pretty well in his double-decker, well, not double-decker Saab, but at least a trailer that hauls 2 Saabs, double-decker style. Pick up here with race chairman Jim Karamanis out in the ELB Racing, probably Racer Walshco sponsored Ford GT. It's good to have you with us out there in Facebook and YouTube land. We'll have 30 minutes of practice here at Summit Point, followed by a 15-minute qualifying session. And in a 30-minute race, we see Jeff Underwood has jumped up to the top of the timing tower there, tied with Stefan Vappa, so we must need another digit there just to figure out who is a touch quicker. Jeff Underwood taking the race last in the season opener at VIR. Let's see if we can't pull up our current standings here in just a moment. Coming at you this evening from Summit Point, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 55% humidity, partly cloudy, 2-mile-an-hour wind. 1.99 miles here at Summit Point, running the full configuration in the Ford GT. Matthew Barber. I'd like to thank Matthew and his continued sponsorship Office Service Company for all your office needs. Ralph Solomon rejoining us this evening. Perhaps he was at VIR. I was not in attendance at that race, but good to see Ralph back after a bit of a vacation here from the VRG VRL. Kurt Uzbey apparently needs to get a little more heat in those tires. Entering the carousel there and having a bit of a shunt. The Golf liveried Ford GT looking excellent this evening, Kurt. We're going to do 30 minutes of practice here. Pulling up the session time here. We're about 13 minutes into that. We'll follow this up with a 15-minute qualifying and then a 30-minute race session. This is Ian Wisman with the VRG Virtual Racer League. Back here in just a little bit. We'll catch up here as this practice session winds down. A few more racers joining the fray here. Looks like we've got 8 currently out on track and maybe 15 total thus far. We'll see who all gets in before qualifying, before the gates close and no more entries are accepted. Again, we thank you for joining us. I'll be back at the end just a little bit. Right along here with Stefan Vapes. He gives us a tour of Summit Point Motorsports Park. 10 turns, 1.99 miles. Very long straightaway. Lots of time to think about this turn into turn 1 here. Hard on the power, not too loose as you come out of that. And then turn 3, known as wagon bend here. This is a tricky one. You get yourself a little unsettled, grab too much curb or get out on the gravel there and get all kinds out of sorts. Down through the chute here. Generally a bit of a lift. Turn in. Brake hard then for the left into the carousel. Gentle on the power here. Squeeze it too hard and you're going to lose that rear end. Turn into that tire wall. Exiting the carousel through turn 9. Up the hill and towards the bridge. Hard on the power. Braking just as the exit road for the paddock comes in through turn 10. Up and over the curbing and hard back onto the power down to the front straight. Stefan on top of the timing tower, touch slower on that lap as we're following him around. Probably he's got me riding along with him. We'll jump off Stefan, jump down to Jeff Underwood. Jeff currently leading here in the second as we get ready for the second race of season 9 here in the Ford GT, taking the race win last week at VIR on top with 54 points. We'll pull those up. We get a little closer there in between the break between practice and qualifying. Some lovely scenic views here at Summit Point. If you haven't had the opportunity to visit the track, I highly recommend it. Beautiful facilities down there. And as always, Shea Summit, their famous 100-mile-per-hour chili. Steve Ficacci heading out for a couple of laps here in practice. Steve puts together a training video for everybody every week, generally the week before the race, so we can all get at least some inspiration as to how quickly we could go around the course if we were all so inclined to do so. Steve seems to be possessed of some otherworldly abilities, so generally we're all about 2 to 3 seconds slower to him. And of course, the cameraman's cursor as I'm talking about him, but he'll get that out of the way here in practice, and I'm sure keep it clean during the race. Good field here this evening, 13 cars thus far. I think we're still waiting on Ralph Padgington, which would be the sister car to Jim Karamanis' ELB Racing Ford GT. Just a couple of seconds separating the majority of the field here. A couple of folks still getting caught up to speed with the car here. The Ford GT being a bit of a different animal than we've been racing here. Five minutes remaining here in this practice session. We'll do 15 minutes of open qualifying. We get to jump through everybody's cars as they take their qualifying laps. I haven't watched last race, so uncertain if we're going to get everybody out at once or if we're going to do single flying laps, in which case we'll get to bounce around to everybody's individual qualifying session and see the times as they come in. We'll do 15 minutes of qualifying, and then we'll have a 30-minute feature race here at Summit Point. Take a look at the point standings when we wrap up this practice session here, see who's out on top and who's going to be fighting for the lead. If we look at the timing tower, Steve Ficacci just recently joined the session, putting down a 1:07.974. I expect Stefan Vappa is going to challenge that. Jeff Underwood also equally quick. As we can see, Stefan and Jeff setting identical lap times here in this practice session. Dave Curtis not too far behind. And then Jim Graziano rounding out the top five there. Matthew Barber and Clark Orstrom running here. You see Clark's blinking just a little bit. Might be having a bit of network connectivity issue on his side. Whoop, a bit of object avoidance there in the entrance to the carousel. Stefan going purple there in the final sector, but not enough to get him on top of the timing tower here. Of course, this is just practice. Expect they've got a bit more in the tank that they'll pull out for qualifying and see who can put their car out on top. Coming up on 2 minutes remaining here in this practice session. This is Ian Wisbin with the VRG Virtual Racer League. If you're watching and you'd like to join us, stop by the website vrgonline.org. Get in touch with us. info@vrgonline.org. For most of us up here in the Northeast, it's going to start getting cold here. Hopefully not for a while yet. But of course, we aren't going to be out there racing our real cars. So what better way to keep your skills fresh than to go virtual racing with us through the wintertime? We race at, a fair amount of tracks. We race in the real world. We also get to do some fun endurance stuff over the winter months. We do 12 hours of Sebring. We'll do 24 hours of Daytona. A couple of other endurance events. Jim Graziano, who is a Ironman in the endurance racing, seems every week he's taking part in another 3 or 6 hour event. It's a heck of a way to keep your skills fresh. I hadn't raced at Summit for a couple of years, but had been doing the iRacing and went back last year for the Turkey Bowl and didn't miss a step. It's a great way to keep your sight lines in order and practice those braking points. Jumping up to the Treacle Insurance blimp, the checkered flag has flown on this practice session. So we will be resetting here and going out for qualifying in just a moment. So while we're doing that, let's see if we can pull up our current standings and see where everybody sits. One race in thus far. Last week at VIR, Jeff Underwood's currently out on top, 54 points. Dave Curtis in second place with 40. Wiley Cox, 35. Jim Graziano, 32, and Carlos Bonds round out the top 5 there with 30. You get a point for qualifying on the pole. You get a point for most laps led. And then 50 points goes to the race winner. We'll pull up our timing tower once that fills in. Cars go around and turn their initial laps. Everybody's out in this qualifying session. Unlike prior seasons where we've done solo flying laps for qualifying, it's all about getting out there, setting a quick time, making sure you get some clear air. And we'll see who can come out on top here. 15 minutes in this qualifying session. Currently riding along, watching Stefan Vappa. Now, depending upon what graphics I have set up here, do we have Stefan's double-decker trailer? We do not. I'm going to have to fix up the overlay there for the next race here. So Stefan out on his first lap here. Everybody's going to get warmed up. We'll expect those to come down 2 or 3 seconds. Heck, maybe 4 seconds, depending on just how quick you are. Wiley looks to be hustling it this evening in the Ford GT. Might be a car he's comfortable with. Your broadcaster here has about 11 minutes in the car. Fun to drive, but again, all of these are a little bit different depending upon how the braking, acceleration, shifting, all that good stuff's concerned. Looking at that timing tower over there, looks like Steve Ficacci's currently out on top with a 108.069. Stefan Vappa in second. Jim Graziano currently in third. Wiley, who we're following along with right now, in fourth place. Picking up Jeff Underwood here. Might be running into a bit of traffic, slowing up Jeff. We'll see if he can get some clear air and get a quick lap time in here. Jim Caraman is just ahead. Lots of movement here in this qualifying session early on. Steve Ficacci still out on top. Stefan Vappa in second. Jeff Underwood third. Wiley Cox jumping up to fourth place. Jim Graziano falling down a little bit to fifth. Jim Caramanich just outside that top five. Sorry to pick you up there, Toby, as you're getting back on track. We'll catch back up when you're out on a flyer. Summit Point, a track most of these racers know very well in the real world, so trying to apply that real world experience here in the sim. Though a number of the drivers compete in decidedly different cars than the Ford GT we're out here in tonight. Ralph Solomon, though, with his Bobsy, probably a similar kind of power to weight ratio in that car, but most of us know and love Ralph from racing his Elva Formula Junior. Which has much skinnier tires and much lower horsepower, but a bit more of a momentum car here than this Ford GT that has the grunt to really pull it down this long front straightaway here at Summit Point. Cameraman's curse there, Toby. I owe you a beer after this one. Pick it up here with Matthew Barber. Matthew currently sitting in 11th position with a 110.795, not too far outside of the gaggle of folks up there in the 109s. Expect Matthew sharpens his approach here just a little bit. Might be able to get up there into that top 10 rather handily. Jim Caraman has fallen back just a little bit here into 10th position here in our qualifying session. Coming up on 8 minutes into that, we'll have 15 minutes total of qualifying. Well, Bob Lang, sorry about that, buddy. Just a little bit of a tire outside on the left there. You get a little loosey-goosey coming through 10. That Rothman's liveried Ford looks great. A bit of evasive action and scramble there down the front straight. As Bob brings it back onto the track, we're going to follow John Clark here. Down the front straight, hard into that braking zone there. Got to be ginger about that. It's tempting to want to go inside. So we're under 5 minutes here in this 15-minute qualifying session here. Summit Point Motorsports Park with the VRG Virtual Racer League. Ford GT in the VRG GT Series. Now this is an older Ford GT in the iRacing simulator. There's a newer version, a GTE class, which you're probably familiar with from recent runnings of the Daytona 24 Hours or Sebring 12 Hours. A bit of an older car here, but we've attempted to use cars here in iRacing that are a bit more similar to what we're used to racing, being vintage racers here in the Vintage Racer group. So the handling characteristics and the driving style are quite similar. In previous seasons, we've used a Skippy Formula Ford, and then the Audi 90 GTO car to make it a bit more like those cars we're used to driving in the real world. Now we're currently watching Stefan Vapp as he comes around through turn 10, currently sitting in second position here in qualifying. Looks like he's a little bit slower in the sectors leading up here. Probably not going to improve upon his lap time thus far. Just a couple of more minutes to get it over and done with here. A 1:08.568 there. Steve Ficacci's currently out on top. We'll pick up with Steve. Stefan's just behind him. So two quick cars. Stefan trying to knock Steve off of the pole position here. Should give Stefan some clean running room here as Ficacci is equally as quick. You can see really hanging it out there, picking up some dust on most of these corners here. A braver man than I, particularly there down through the chute as they enter into the carousel. Looks like Steve's gotten out of it here. Stefan's going to come up around and see what he can do. Personal best Sector 1, quickest in Sector 2. Let's see what he does in Sector 3 here as he crosses start-finish. Still not able to get ahead of Steve Ficacci. You can bet Stefan's going to give it another shot here in the waning minutes of our qualifying session here at Summit Point. Dave Curtis standing strong here in third position with a 108.311. Quickest of the rest there. Jeff Underwood, last week's race winner, just behind with a 108.419. Jim Graziano with a 108.918. Looking down through the times here, looks like it's going to be some pretty close racing throughout the pack. So certainly looking forward to this race here. 30 minutes coming up here in the feature once we finish this 15-minute qualifying session. Big shout out to Office Service Company for sponsoring the VRG VRL. Matthew Barber and Office Service Company putting together a couple of nice gifts for the competitors every season, and there's a lovely trophy fabricated by Stefan Vappa himself that gets shuttled around as you win your seasons, made out of a camshaft from, of course, Saab. Stefan quick again in Sector 1. Sector 2 again quickest in the race. See what he does cross and start finish. A 108.167. Not able to improve upon his quickest time here and coming into some traffic, and we are coming to 20 seconds left in this qualifying session. I don't think anybody's going to be able to make any moves here on Steve Ficacci, currently out on top of the 107.804. Once we hit the 15-minute mark, qualifying session is going to wrap up, and then we'll bring up the grid and read it off before we get rolling here at Summit Point. And that would be the end of qualifying. Stefan putting it up there along the fence. Get a quick tow back into the pits. Steve Ficacci still out there. Purple in first sector. We'll watch him as he comes around the rest of the way. Currently on top, 107.804. We'll see what his second sector time is. Now he's out on a flyer, so this will count. Purple in the second sector. I'm going to cross start finish. What can Steve Ficacci do here? Purple in the third sector. Starting to not trust my timing and scoring here. Anyway, Steve Ficacci is going to finish qualifying out on top here with a 107.804, our pole sitter for this evening's 30-minute feature race at Summit Point Motorsports Park. Now, once timing and scoring gets the grid up to us, we'll walk you through that. This is Ian Wisbon with the VRG Virtual Racer League. This is the second race of our Season 9 in the Ford GT, the VRG GT Series here. That does it for our qualifying session. Now let's bring up this grid and see what we've got going on. Folks are going to start filling in. We'll pick them up once they do. Starting off in pole position, Steve Ficacci with 107.804, quickest in qualifying, quickest in practice. Stefan Vappa outside pole. P3, Jeff Underwood, winner of last week's race of VIR, fourth place. Dave Curtis, round out that top five, Jim Graziano. Next we've got Wiley Cox. John Clark qualifying seventh, Bob Lang in eighth. Clark Orstrom in ninth, Jim Karamanis, rounding out the top 10 there. Matthew Barber just outside in 11th place. Ralph Solomon, welcome back, Ralph. Good to see you. 12th position. Now we're going to have a paced lap here, so we're going to get a couple of more minutes to talk through this starting grid here this evening. Kurt Uzbay starting in 13th place and Toby Yurko in 14th. Did Ralph Padgington manage to join us in time? Ralph did not set a time. That doesn't mean he can't race with us. Jumping back up there to the top. We'll follow the grid around as they get a little bit of heat in the tires. I'm pretty sure this is a quick pace lap here for our feature race at Summit Point Motorsports Park. It's a good time to go get a beverage. If you're at the track, swing by Shea Summit, pick up a bowl of the excellent 100 mile per hour chili. Say hello to the lovely ladies there making us the sandwiches. Certainly appreciate everything that the Summit Point folks do for us. Virtually end in the real world, and the grid has rolled off. The pace car leading our pack, Ford GT here, second race of the season in the VRG GT Series here at Summit Point. The lights are up. We'll wait for those to go green, and we will be racing. Pace car is off. Steve Ficacci and Stefan Vappa leading the field. Green flag, and we are racing. Stefan Vappa and Steve Ficacci out on front. It's a race down to turn one to see who's going to take it. Lots of time to think about this. A bit of an issue back there in the back between, looks like Ralph, Jim Karamanis, Clark Orstrom. They'll get back into it. Steve Ficacci on the inside of one. Jeff Underwood just behind Steve, sniffing his bumper. Stefan Vappa's going to the outside. Who's going to stick that? Looks like Stefan's going to come away with P2 out of turn one. So Ficacci, Vappa, Underwood, followed by Dave Curtis, Wiley Cox. A bit of a bump there between Wiley Cox and Jim Graziano, but it looks like they're able to continue. Down through the chute, Ficacci leading Vappa, Underwood, Curtis, Wiley Cox. Into the carousel that first time. A little squirrely. Those tires may be cold. Let's bump back through the grid here and see what all we got going on. Everybody else looks to be clean into the carousel. Ficacci leading through, exiting up into turn 9. So a bit of shenanigans there at the drop the green flag, but I believe Karamanis and everybody else is going to get back into this once they get to the pit and pick up a quick repair. So leading lap 1 here in our second race, Summit Point Motorsports Park. Steve Ficacci followed by Stefan Vappa, Jeff Underwood, though it looks like Dave Curtis is making a run. It's a drag race down the front straight into turn 1. Underwood to the inside, Curtis to the outside. Looks like Jeff's going to stick that one. And he does. Wiley Cox not too far behind, letting Dave and Jeff have a bit of a fight there. Wiley biding his time to make a move a bit later in the race here. Jump back a little bit here. We've got Clark Orstrom leading Kurt Uzbey and Bob Lang into the carousel. Matthew Barber a little bit further behind here. I'm sure Matthew's going to catch up. We got Toby Yarkos back here, still getting his feet, but he'll catch up this pack here in just a little bit. So after 2 laps, it looks like it's going to be Ficacci, Vappa, Underwood, followed by Wiley Cox, Dave Curtis. Got about a second separating the top 3 here. And then it's a bit further back to Wiley Cox and Dave Curtis, though Dave looking to the inside of Wiley. Not sure if he's going to make that stick. Wiley able to maintain that position. Ooh, a little bit of oversteer there coming out of turn 1, turn 2. So they race up to Wagon Bend here. Dave Curtis to the inside around Wagon Bend. Wiley Cox is going to have to fall back there and get back on Dave's bumper there. And we get the go for cam view here out of Stefan Vappa's front bumper. And then we'll take a peek out his gearbox and see how far behind to third place Jeff Underwood. Not too close yet. All 3 here very quick drivers. Jeff Underwood currently purple, setting the fastest lap. So expect Jeff to get up here into the front in just a little bit and challenge Steve and Stefan. Steve Ficacci going purple with a 108-200. Jeff Underwood taking back fastest lap of the race thus far, so he is quick. He's in a good position to watch Stefan and Steve battle this one out. Bit of a gap back to 4th place Dave Curtis, but Dave's got some time and space to think about things. Wiley Cox has Jim Graziano filling up his mirrors. We'll jump on board here real quick with Jim Graziano and see what this looks like as they enter into the carousel. Jim putting his nose there going through the carousel so Wiley can see him there. We'll see how this works out as they come through 9 and up the hill towards turn 10. Clean through 10, out onto the front straight. Graziano's got the draft. Can he make it work? Can the cameraman change cameras? Jim Graziano diving to the inside into turn 1. Wiley Cox on the outside. Jim, a bit of a bobble there, so Wiley's able to stay straight right on his bumper. But it looks like Jim's going to take that position away and run away with it just a little bit. We'll see how these two fare as they head back across Wagon Bend and down through the chute. Jim protecting that inside line as the entrance into the carousel here. Wiley sticking out to the outside, thinking about it, and then thinking twice. Back up to our race leaders here now. They're going to be coming into a bit of traffic here. It looks like that would be Ralph Solomon there at the back of the pack here. Steve Ficacci and Stefan Vappa there giving a flash of the lights. Ralph running wide. That was a bit of a tense moment there. Steve, Stefan, Jeff clean into 1. Jeff's going to get held up a touch here by Ralph Solomon. We'll see if that puts any more distance between 2nd and 3rd place here. Ralph losing it as he enters Wagon Bend. Jeff Underwood is clear. Ralph thankfully sliding off Wagon Bed. However, Dave Curtis seems to have gotten caught up in that. Wiley Cox coming through here and is going to get back on track and take the position back from Dave Curtis. Unfortunately, Dave looks to have a bit of damage. He's probably going to have to stop in the pits and get that fixed up. Otherwise, he's going to be down on aerodynamics for sure. He may have a tough rest of his race keeping up with this fast pack. Unfortunate for Dave, with a very strong qualifying performance here at Summit Point. Stefan able to close that gap up. It was out about as far as a second. Now it's under half a second between 1st and 2nd place here. Jeff Underwood there in the distance. Currently working lap 8, coming up on 10 minutes into this 30-minute feature race at Summit Point Motorsports Park. We got a gaggle of cars here racing through the carousel. Currently following Jim Graziano, just ahead Clark Orstrom and Dave Curtis. Dave having an unfortunate off there as he was coming through Wagon Bend, avoiding a sliding Ralph Solomon. Dave still under power and out there racing. We'll see how much he's down on either aerodynamics or power as a result of that shunt that he had. Able to keep Clark at bay. But we should see here on the front straight, Clark and even Jim may have the opportunity to get around due to the aerodynamic deficiencies Dave Curtis may be experiencing. coming back to the scene of the crime there. Clark Orstrom getting on the power a little bit too hard. A bit of oversteer there. Dave's going to get back around. Jim Graziano is going to tuck back behind. Discretion, the better part of having an off at the wagon bend there. Jumping back up to our leaders here. It looks like Stefan Vappa had an off. We're going to have to go back there and see what happened. Looks like Stefan did have a crash there. So now it's currently Steve Ficacci in first place. Jeff Underwood second place, about 3 seconds behind. You can see him there in the distance. And then Wiley Cox, who has been patient and steady in this race thus far, currently standing on that last step of the podium. Let's jump back here and see what happened to Stefan Vappa. Looks like he ran into the pit lane and then had a shunt. We'll pick that up here. Jumping back to Stefan. Coming through turn 10. Gets out there. Somebody pulled back onto the track. Steve Ficacci definitely avoiding it. Stefan, unfortunately, having quite the incident there at the end of the pit wall. Too much damage. Had to go back to the pit lane and reset. Jump back to live coverage here, picking it back up with our race leader, Steve Ficacci. That puts Stefan all the way down in 13th place. I've seen Stefan come back from some pretty significant issues in the past. We'll see if he can pull that one out here this evening. I would say it would be a more inspired drive at this point, given how evenly matched these cars are and how quick Steve and Jeff were at the top of this pack. So unfortunate there for Stefan. Closest battle on the track right now, still Orstrom, Curtis, Graziano. Dave's car is a little bit wounded. You can see Clark's blinking there a little bit. From the perspective of the drivers out on the course, it's very similar to what we're seeing here. So when you're racing somebody that's having some connectivity issues, they'll blink out and come back. And the sim tries to do a pretty good job of keeping everybody in the same place in virtual physics. But sometimes that gets a little weird. Now they're all going to get around Ralph Solomon here before they get back to Wagon Bend. Probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief there so they can concentrate on the racing between these three. Now Clark's able to put a bit of distance here on Jim and Dave. Dave all over Jim Graziano's behind. Curduz Bay soldiering on here in 7th position. Kurt's running pretty much in clear air, so in a good spot for him if he can keep this up. He's not too far back from the race we've been following. Graziano, Curtis, and Orstrom, though. We did have a bit of a shake-up here. Looks like Graziano has managed to get out in front. Seems as if Clark may have had a bit of a shunt there. We'll see if we can pick this up on the replay and see what happened as they're coming down the chute. Entering into the carousel. Clark just gets a little too much oversteer as he turns into the carousel there, and Graziano is able to prosper. So as we can see here, currently following second place Jeff Underwood, he's quick. Unfortunately, Steve Ficacci is equally as quick and has gapped him just enough that not able to make any significant progress here. We're about halfway through this 30-minute feature race. But maintaining that gap, if Jeff can kind of stay close here, still a little bit away from some traffic, so I don't know that Jeff's going to get much help there. Pick back up with Stefan Vappa, re-entering the race somewhere around, I believe, 11th or 12th position after his unfortunate collision there with the pit wall, avoiding a car coming back across track. Currently up to 9th position and setting some quick times. Now, Stefan's car is basically brand new at this point. So he's got just under 15 minutes to put it right back where it was. And like I said, I've seen Stefan do more with less. So we might see a drive for the record books here this evening, assuming Stefan can make quick work of this and get caught back up here with the rest of the pack. And as I'm pulling up additional graphics here, I can see Stefan's actually lapped down. So he's not only got to get back around one whole time and around, got back up. Now, this might be a bit of a bridge too far for Stefan here this evening, which is unfortunate, but I'm sure he's going to put on a great drive here this evening, but perhaps not the result that he would have wished for. So Wiley Cox currently running in third position here. You can see the 3 lights lit up on the side of his car to indicate he is currently our third place driver. I believe that's Bob Lang just ahead of him and Stefan Vappa charging up hard from behind. See if Wiley extends some gentlemanly courtesy here and allows Stefan to get around and try to get back up on that lead lap. A bit hairy there as they work up through 9 and 10. Bob going to the right there. Wiley going to the outside. Stefan backing off just a bit so as to not have to work too hard through 10, but makes his way around Bob and back onto the front straight. Going to pick up a nice draft here from Wiley. So they should tighten up as they get down to turn 1. We'll pick up here with Steve Ficacci. Now he's going to be coming up on Steve Ficacci with an off there. A rare unforced error from him. Jeff Underwood able to capitalize on that. Oh, side by side as they enter 10. Steve's going to shut the door on him, but Jeff is caught right up there. So now we've got a race for the lead here. Steve Ficacci still out in front. As the car rejoins the race there. Looks like that was Toby Yurko coming back on track. Steve down into 1, Jeff Underwood just behind. So this should be exciting here, folks. We got about 10 minutes remaining in this 30-minute feature race, so assuming Jeff can stay glued to Steve's bumper, this should be a good race here in the closing minutes. We'll jump back here and see exactly what happened with Steve. Could be working his way out of the carousel. Into 9. Turns in just a little too early there in the entrance into 9 there, and just totally unsettled the car. Luckily, he's able to keep it off the wall and get it back on the track before Jeff came up behind and took that position away from him. But it was a close moment there for Steve, so excellent save there as he's coming up the hill. Steve able to put a little bit of a distance there between Jeff. Though they are coming onto some traffic here, so this should get interesting. Steve flashing those headlights, so the car is just ahead there. Kurt Uzbek can see they're approaching and allow those leaders to pass by without incident. Through the chute and down into the carousel. Now this is probably going to bunch them up a little bit here. So Kurt does go to the outside, allow Ficacci to get by. Underwood still working around the outside there in the carousel, so this is just what Steve needed and just what Jeff didn't. John Clark there going off on the outside of turn 1 and 2. Up through Wagon Bend here. So Jeff's got Steve in his sights. Just over a second between the two. Our third place sitter Wiley Cox here having a race with Stefan Vappa. Now Stefan's going to be behind, down a lap due to his incident earlier in the race. Unfortunate here for Wiley, but he's got somebody to chase. Stefan being a very capable driver, so Wiley probably working a bit harder than he'd like to in this third place position. But I'm sure happy to have a bit of a race there. Stefan does seem to be walking away a little bit here as he tries to charge back up through the pack. Picking up with Matthew Barber here, and that would be Dave Curtis just ahead. Now Matthew is a lap down. Dave Curtis on the lead lap. Dave walking away a little bit here. Jumping back up to our race leaders. Steve Ficacci around the outside there in 10. Ralph Solomon lap traffic. We'll see if Jeff is delayed by Ralph or he's able to get around him closely. Now there's enough distance there. Jeff's probably not going to catch him until they get down to 1, which is again going to play into Ficacci's hands. Into Wagon Bend. Ralph shutting the door there just a little bit. Jeff's going to go to the outside down through the chute, which is going to give an additional second lead there to Steve Ficacci as you can see him entering the carousel. So, unfortunately, the best laid plans of Jeff seem to not be working out here for him this evening. But we still got a few minutes left here. We got about 5 minutes remaining in this 30-minute race session. I do believe this is a time-bound race, so 30 minutes, and we should see a checkered flag. Steve Ficacci, 108.031. Jeff Underwood with a 108.031. So they are very evenly matched insofar as lap times are concerned. Unfortunately, Steve has a almost 3-second lead on Jeff at this point. So unless something happens to Mr. Ficacci, these last few minutes may not be enough for Jeff. So race leader Steve Ficacci here, a 3.5-second lead on second place Jeff Underwood. Third place Wiley Cox, quite a bit of ways back now. The final minutes here of this race, 30-minute race feature here at Summit Point Motorsports Park with the VRG Virtual Racer League, the VRG GT Series, and the Ford GT. We're here at Summit Point this week. Next week, we're headed to Thompson, a track I've never been to, but is in iRacing, so I'm looking forward to that one. Going to have to put in a couple of practice laps so I know what I'm talking about next week while I'm broadcasting. I'd certainly like to thank the Treacle Insurance Blimp for sponsoring this evening and providing overhead coverage. We get a lovely bird's eye view of Summit Point Motorsports Park as Jeff Underwood works his way there through the carousel. Tree-lined course here at Summit Point. It's beautiful. Get an opportunity. We're going to be down there the weekend prior to Thanksgiving for the annual VRG Turkey Bowl. Tons of track time. Lots of good people. Generally a great time to be there. Sometimes a bit brisk, but that's okay. Stefan Vappa throwing caution to the wind at this point. Looks like he set fastest lap of the race with a 107.832. He's not messing around. Still a lap down, so unfortunately it's not going to do much for him in the race to win this thing. Coming up on Dave Curtis here. Dave had a shunt earlier, 2 shunts actually. Looks like he's gone back into the pits and gotten a quick repair there and fixed up that damage. So unfortunate there for Stefan, as looks like he had the pace to really take it to Ficacci here this evening. Now we're coming up, it should be the closing moments here of this race. 29.5 minutes into this. It's going to be a 30-minute race. Depending upon how quickly Steve gets around, we'll probably get one more lap out of this one. It's going to be close. Bob Lang there to the outside, letting race leader Steve Ficacci by as Steve works his way around turn 10. Has led this from the drop of the green flag Let's see, is Barney waving a flag out there when they come by start finish? Camera angle's not wide enough to tell. That is a white flag that Barney is waving, so currently working last lap, picking up our second place car here, Jeff Underwood. 4 seconds back from race leader Steve Ficacci, so likely no chance unless something happens to Steve in these final few turns that Jeff's going to be able to take the win here. However, Jeff did win last week at VIR, so he should still be out on top of the point standings here, which will keep our championship close and exciting for next week at Thompson. Ficacci working his way around turn 9 up the hill under the bridge for the last time here as he's going to work his way around turn 10. Clark Orstrom there turning in just ahead. Hopefully he sees the race leader coming through. Steve getting a little wide there coming out of 10, but he keeps it on the macadam and is going to take the checkered flag for the win here at Summit Point with the VRG GT Series. Congratulations to our race winner, Steve Ficacci. Jeff Underwood coming around in second place, flashing the headlights in celebration. We'll pick up our third place racer right now, Wiley Cox, working his way out of the carousel around turn 9. Wiley's got to be pleased with this drive here this evening. Benefited from some on-track unexpectedness and has driven a nice, clean race to stand in the final position in the podium. Wiley Cox, congratulations to him as he comes around and picks up a checkered flag there from Barney. Sounds like there's some celebratory donuts taking place down in turn 1. Fourth place finisher Jim Graziano, Castrol Tag Heuer through 10 onto the front straight, puts the hammer down, and will take his fourth place finish here. Clark Orstrom coming around turn 10 to round out that top 5 finish here. Nice drive there from Clark. And once timing and scoring gets our final official results, we'll pull those up. We'll take a look and see how things finished here. And then we'll probably jump into the interview booth and get a couple of words from our drivers here this evening. Seems somebody has left a tire somewhere. There's probably the remainder of a Ford GT laying around somewhere else. So congratulations all of our drivers here this evening. Let's see what timing and scoring has to say about our final finishing results. So pulling those up, our race winner this evening, Steve Ficacci, second place, Jeff Underwood in third place, Wiley Cox. You give me a minute, I'm going to jump over the broadcast booth and see if anybody's willing to have a word. All right, and we are back. Ian Wisbin here with the VRG Virtual Racer League, and we are in the broadcast booth. Tonight we have race winner Steve Ficacci. We've got second place finisher Jeff Underwood, third place Wiley Cox, and then Stefan Vappa is joining us. Unfortunate there for you, Stefan, because you looked like you had the pace, but a bit of an unfortunate incident there coming out of 10. We'll touch base that there in just a moment. Steve, I hope you're doing well. Good to see you out there. Nice drive from you here this evening. Flag to flag. How was it out there for you this evening?
It was good. I was expecting lap traffic to be tougher than it was, but everybody's just like, I feel like so improved since we started, and I didn't have any issues. I had one incident self-caused. I took too much curb, and a car just bounced Off the track, I was fortunate to keep it out of the tires, and it gave Jeff, you know, Jeff got right on my bumper after that, and I had to put some good laps in to try to shake him. And I think I got a little fortunate with some of those lap cars, so it worked out well for me.
Yeah, from watching up here in the broadcast booth, if you didn't necessarily have issues with traffic, I think Jeff, unfortunately, we watched pretty much the entire race. Every time you got close, you managed to catch a bit of traffic that allowed Steve to put a second or so on you, which was unfortunate. But Jeff, outstanding drive from you here this evening. Steve doesn't often make a mistake, but you were right there coming up through turn 9 when he grabbed a bit too much curb. How was your race for you this evening? Did you have fun out there?
Well, I certainly had fun, and you described it pretty well for me. I felt like that traffic was pretty much unlucky just about every occurrence. It's just kind of how it shakes out or whatever. And I was hoping to kind of pressure Steve a little bit more after his mistake and kind of hang in there. And um, felt like the pace was pretty good most of the race. Had fast lap for almost all of it, and then Steve kind of decided he was going to take it there for an end. It seemed like the car was slowing down a little bit during the middle of the race, like the tires were just warm or whatever. But then all of a sudden, it kind of seemed like it came back alive again, and our times were coming down. It seemed like, but all in all, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the battle.
It was a lot of fun to watch up here. Certainly, it was exciting when you did get a chance to catch up to Steve there. But I guess to Steve's point, the pack spread out pretty well, and traffic was not necessarily as much of an issue as I thought it would be. We'll look here to Wiley. Wiley, you kind of silently made a really nice third place finish here this evening. You had a great qualifying effort, but I think you benefited from some of the stuff that happened up front, and then just drove a solid race there for the rest of it, finishing it in third place. How was it for you this evening, Wiley?
Yeah, thank you. No, it was good. I tried to get a solid start. I think I might have hip checked Jim G a little bit on corner 1 to kind of keep my spot. But yeah, I was just trying to keep up with, or trying to keep as close as I could to Jeff and Stefan, stay in the draft as long as I could, and eventually I got dropped out of that. But yeah, again, just put my head down, try to stay ahead of the folks behind me, and I did get pretty lucky with traffic. Folks were super considerate out there, which I appreciate. And I put myself off just a couple wheels off a couple times, but I think I built up enough of a cushion that no one's going to catch me up behind me. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Very nice. Now, Stefan, unfortunately, you had the pace, and I think you had fastest lap of the race when it was all said and done. But unfortunate there as you're coming off turn 10 onto the front straight. The rest of it, though, aside from that, how was it for you?
Yeah, apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Right.
Well, it was looking good, and then it was just a matter of I chose the wrong direction to go around the kind of standstill or slightly rolling car. It was a 50-50 shot, and I got the wrong side of that, which seems to be a theme recently. But it was interesting. I haven't had a chance to drive the car until now. You can tell by my very plain livery that I haven't even had a chance to sit down and make a paint scheme. But it was a decent, fun car to drive. I like that it doesn't have the ABS, and you can lock them up and screw up a corner. That takes a lot of skill, particularly going down through the chute and into turn 5. That's a pretty sketchy corner in this car. So that was good fun. And even though it has traction control, you can definitely get in the loud pedal a little bit too hard and mess yourself up. Other than that, yeah, driving. I guess my driving went pretty well. Like you say, I got the fastest lap there towards the very end. Looks like lap 23. So happy with that. Let's go with that. Unfortunately, no points for fastest lap.
Unfortunately. Well, you said you hadn't had much opportunity to drive the car, and if everybody else doesn't mind, just like to take a minute. Why don't you tell us a bit about where you were in the real world racing some cars, because it looked like you had a great time up at Put in Bay.
Yeah, Put in Bay was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I had some very highlights and a few lowlights, but Put in Bay is a little bit of an interesting event. It takes place on Put in Bay Island out in the Great Lakes, just north of, well, it's actually part of Ohio. Um, they do it in the middle of the week, which is a new one for me. But I gather because Put in Bay is a tourist attraction and a bit of a party island, uh, the local government said you can come and have a race here, but don't screw up our money-making weekend. Um, so they have a car show on Tuesday and a parade around the historic race course, which takes route through the town. And it must have been a very exciting race course back in the day. It is narrow and the straightaways are extremely long. So even though they were small displacement cars, I have to imagine they were really moving. It's narrow enough that you probably could have blocked the course just by driving down the middle of it and defended your position. It's really something else. So then on Wednesday, they have the first races. This year, however, we had quite a bit of weather, so they were able to get permission to move the schedule back a day, which is a first for me. So we started racing on Thursday, which the course was still wet, but it takes, they put all the race laps on the local airport. It's hard to believe an island that small has room for an airport, but it does. And so they jig and jag off of the taxiways and onto the main runway, which has a lot of painted lines on it, which in the wet is really exciting. I had a grand time driving in the wet. I felt like a rally ace the whole time, just sliding and counter steering and having a whole lot of fun. However, I took two cars. I took the Quantum 2, which is 1959 H modified class car with a Saab 2-stroke in it, and it developed a electrical gremlin. Could have been water, could have been a ground, not sure, but it stopped running during qualifying and didn't want to restart for the rest of the weekend. So that car was out. The Sonnet, I qualified on the pole and won that race, which was, again, just tons of fun because it was in the wet. Every time you go across a painted line, the car wants to go sideways or jig over that direction or jag over that way. And that was really exciting. There was you'll get a kick out of this, a really fast Volkswagen Beetle that pressured me throughout the race. That was cool to see someone out there with another engine over the driving wheels advantage making pace on a wet course. So that went really well, and then come Friday, I started on the pole for the race, but a friend of mine had a brake failure, and so I entered turn 1 and found out that his nose went into my passenger door, and that was it for the weekend for me. Still, it's a really cool event. The racing is sort of secondary to the atmosphere side of it. They have something like a rocker cover race. So imagine your Cub Scouts Pinewood Derby, but with rocker covers. And it's a good time. I would do it again if I could get out there. It's a bit of a logistical nightmare for me towing all the way across Pennsylvania and Ohio, but it was a lot of fun, and I consider there's a bit of unfinished business out there for me.
Well, it certainly sounds like it, and I know one of the events that I'd like to put on my calendar at some point, but that middle of the week is what makes it tough right now, having to hold down a day job. But certainly appreciate you taking the time to share that with us, because it looked like a lot of fun, and all the pictures I saw on Facebook, and maybe we can steal a bit of video and show that in one of the upcoming broadcasts so folks out there can see what the Put in Bay is all about. And unfortunate luck here for you this evening, Stefan. Sorry it didn't go too terribly well for you. But next week, we're headed out to Thompson, a track that I've never been to in the real world, and I have also not raced here in iRacing. Steve, as we all look to you every week to make a tape for us so we know exactly where we should be putting the car, but we may not necessarily be able to achieve it. Have you spent any time there, and are you looking forward to next week and perhaps trying to take them back-to-back wins?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to it because I think it's an oval. I don't think iRacing has the road course.
That is correct.
And I don't know anything about ovals, so this could be awesome. I'll make a video.
You turn right the whole time, right? Or is it the left?
It's left.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I guess it depends on the what the admin sets it up, right?
I suppose. I haven't looked, and you know how Chairman Karamanis likes to pull some tricks every now and again. I should probably take a look at that and see what's going to happen. Jeff, Stefan, Wiley, any of you have any experience at Thompson?
I've driven the oval there in some other cars in iRacing. I've worked Thompson. I haven't driven it in a real car, but yeah, the ovals. It's a 3/8 mile oval. It's going to be super entertaining in these cars.
I've driven one corner of the oval several times because it's part of the road course.
I've raced the track in iRacing a couple times.
Well, it sounds like that might be the great equalizer then next weekend. And I know, VRG puts on an event at Thompson, and I think next year we're even talking about having something of a, not necessarily a night race, but like a, dusk into twilight kind of a race. But that's for next year. But next week certainly should be exciting. And I've got the championship standings pulled up right now on the broadcast. And Jeff, you're currently out on top with 94 points. So you've got a pretty decent lead here as we head into the third race of the season. Wiley's currently sitting second at 70 points. Dave Curtis is in third. We got Graziano in fourth, and Kurt Uzbe's up there in fifth place. Now, Steve and Stefan, I believe you weren't in last week's race, so you're still getting caught up here, but should make for some interesting racing next weekend, and we're certainly looking forward to it. I appreciate all your time here this evening, sitting in the booth and chatting with us, and looking forward to some more exciting racing next week at Thompson with the VRG VRL. So congratulations there, Steve, to your win. Jeff, nice drive there for second, and Wiley, congrats on third, and Stefan, we certainly hope you have some better luck next week. So thank you, gentlemen, all very much.
Hey, shout out to our friend Darren Treacle, who's at the runoffs. Hopefully he's going to have a good week.
I was just going to ask where Darren was. His blimp managed to make it to Summit Point, but obviously Darren wasn't here, so we should all be watching for Darren Treacle to put it on the podium then for the runoffs this year, should we?
What's he in? ST something? SM?
STU.
STU? Okay.
Well, we'll certainly be looking forward to it. And a big shout out to our buddy Darren Treacle at the runoffs there, and everybody else that's competing at the runoffs. Hope everybody has a great, successful, safe weekend here. And looking forward to some great online coverage there from the SCCA. And gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for a great race this evening and for joining me up in the broadcast booth. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
All right. We'll catch you later. I'm going to sign off on the other side. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for me in the broadcast booth. This is Ian Wisbin for the VRG Virtual Racer League. We thank you for joining us out in YouTube and Facebook land. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell on YouTube. Make sure it tells you when we go live. Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. We're going to do it again. Next week, we're going to be at Thompson again in the Ford GT in the VRG GT Series. It's been a pleasure having you here with us this evening. Some exciting racing at Summit Point Motorsports Park. Get yourself another bowl of that 100-mile-per-hour chili before you go to bed tonight, and we thank you very much. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook at the VRG Virtual Racer League. This is Ian Wisbin signing off.